Hello, everyone, and welcome to my final mock draft of the year. Now, I will get over my rules in a second, but I am not the host this week or this episode. My father, Tony, is the host, so I'm going to let you take it away for a couple seconds.
Sounds good. So this week is Jordan's final mock draft of the season. This is what he thinks the teams are going to do.
And mixed in with what I would do based off personal rankings.
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm glad then that you specified that. And so we're going to go 1 through 32, no trades. Are you going to mention if you think during the draft that you think there will actually be a trade?
Yes, I'm still so uncertain with the draft. So, something I've typically been thinking about is I don't know how many trades we're going to see. From the picks from 20 on, I'm like, unless there's a quarterback someone wants a fifth year option, I just don't know if teams will be trading up because the talent is so mashed together, if that makes sense.
No, it does. We've also talked a lot about how some teams are going to value some players differently. Of course, quarterbacks kind of move the draft, so we know that there's a couple of quarterback needy teams that might get a little desperate. You don't want to hear that because your team is one of those quarterback needy teams. But that being said, we're going to be good to go. So you just tell me when you're ready, and we will fire this bad boy up.
So, just because this is the most obvious pick, we've known it's going to happen for a while. Cam Ward to the Tennessee Titans. I made a whole video talking about this, I believe in February or January, maybe even. It's been something that's like, okay, this is happening. Cam Ward is a very talented guy. We don't know how much longer the Titans coaching staff is going to have to maybe say, oh, we will suck next year again. Based off the fact they're going Cam Ward over Abdul Carter, I'm starting to think they feel a little bit of a fire under their chair. And with that being said, Cam Ward has all the talent. He has a very good arm. He has some accuracy. Your concerns are the turnover plays, the fumbles, the interceptions. He sometimes is a little too loosey-goosey with it, and that can lead to bad things happening. I expect a high turnover rate year one just because that's how he plays. And this is something I really liked as a comp, and I kind of found it funny how I did it. He reminds me a lot of Jameis Winston, man. There's just some Jameis in there. The talented arm, but turnover plays. And I find that funny because Jameis Winston was the last big three player to be drafted first overall.
Well, one thing I'll say about that, though, that's not a ringing endorsement. So just out of curiosity, would you be utterly shocked if they ended up going, say, Abdul Carter to replace Harold Landry off the edge?
So at this point in the draft process, I would be shocked because everything is telling me they're going quarterback. Their offseason has showed, hey, they're going quarterback. And not saying I disagree with maybe going edge here because I think Abdul Carter is special. But realistically, you look at the second round, what are you more likely to find? A good edge or a good quarterback? Probably a better edge.
So, one real quick question here, just to finish off before we move to Cleveland. Where would you rank Cam Ward in last year's draft
He would have.
of quarterbacks?
So the quarterbacks would have had above him were obviously Caleb Williams, Drake May, and I'm going this off my order, Jaden Daniels, and I probably would have had Michael Penix above him, but that's it. He was actually QB5 at the time before he re-entered the transfer portal for me.
Okay, fair enough. On to pick 2, the Cleveland Browns.
Okay, so the Browns here, this is a thought process I've really had to think about because I think it makes more sense for a team building logistics to take Abdul Carter here. But the signs aren't pointing to that. The signs are very much pointing to Travis Hunter being the pick. Now, Travis Hunter is a talented guy that played both cornerback and wide receiver. I think he can do both, but he needs to pick one or the other to start out. Not really him, the team needs to. I would prefer him at a cornerback because I think that's his better position. I'm really curious to see if the Browns would do him at wide receiver instead, because they don't really have that elite number one wide receiver. And typically, we don't see cornerbacks get taken top two. The highest we've seen recently would be Derek Stingley at 3, and then Sauce Gardner at 4. Outside of that, it's kind of rare we see guys go this high. And with that thought process, it wouldn't shock me if the Browns put him at wide receiver.
Okay, fair enough. Oh, don't forget Witherspoon at 5.
Witherspoon. Okay, yeah, Witherspoon. Whoops.
That's okay.
But none of us saw that pick coming. That was a shock.
That was a shock to me, at least. So the Giants are on the clock. Look at this, another quarterback needy team. What do you have the Giants doing?
I had the Giants taking the best player on the board because they just need to save their asses, to be completely honest. This is a coach and a GM that needs to really win this year, and Abdul Carter is the best player in this draft. Let alone, I don't think ownership would be too sad about getting a generational pass rusher for their next head coach if these guys do end up getting terminated. I just look at Abdul Carter and I just see a guy who is just amazing. He has a good pass rush win rate. He has good technique. He has phenomenal traits. He played off-ball linebacker and was putting pressure on quarterbacks. That's something that doesn't get mentioned as much, is he was insane as a off-ball linebacker. I believe he had like a 23% pass rush win rate the year prior as an off-ball linebacker.
That's good. Now, once again, there's been a lot of rumors that Shedeur Sanders could go here. What I know you've mentioned before, but what are your thoughts on this?
So, and we're recording this on the day that just got announced Shedeur Sanders is having a private workout session with the Giants in Boulder, Colorado. To me, this screams more or less the Giants would be willing to trade in the back end of the first round and take him at 3. I don't think I could be comfortable taking Shedeur in the top 10, honestly. I don't have that high of a grade on him. I have a high enough grade I can see it at the back end of the first round, or a team really needing a quarterback. There is just something hard with his evaluation process because that offensive line was so bad. There are times he has great anticipation, but there are times he doesn't. And you can tell the offensive line really rattled him at times. And it led to some sloppy footwork and stuff that would need to be cleaned up. Brian Dable would be a great coach for him, but I also have concerns of him not having a good O-line in college. You're going to go to the Giants and still have a bad O-line, and we kind of saw how it went against good teams.
Fair enough. All right. Up next, the New England Patriots.
I have been saying this for how long. I am taking Will Campbell here. Now, I know there are concerns with Will Campbell. His arms aren't... Apparently his arms are a mystery now that they've changed at his pro day. It's a mystery. I'm going to go with more of the combine, and his arms are shorter for the position. If you have an issue with him that I would say is more valid than anything, it's his stance. His stance could very much be improved. I've seen some people say he couldn't really be a guard with that stance. But as Duke Manyweather has said, if his stance isn't broken, don't fix it. He was great in the SEC against elite pass rushers. He held up on his own. Did he get beat? Yes, but it wasn't often. And you look at the Patriots, who desperately need offensive line help. Drake May's jersey was a mess last year. Jacoby Brissett was murdered last year. They need to protect Drake May. And if you don't have a guy on the offensive line position to do that, I don't have high hopes for you. And I could see you actually ruining a very good quarterback prospect in Drake May if he gets battered too much.
Fair enough. He does have a lot of moxie, though. He might like it. Jacksonville Jaguars are on the clock.
This pick is one of the ones I could see get traded because I could see a team trying to jump in front of the Raiders to take the guy who's going to go there, but I don't allow trades. And I look at the Jaguars. I could see them go in a couple positions here. I wouldn't be shocked if they actually went the first wide receiver off the board here. I wouldn't be shocked if they took the first tight end off the board here. But I'm just going to have to go with a pick that I think just makes the most sense when I watched them play last year, and that's they need to fix their interior D line. So I'm going to take Mason Graham. As the draft process has gone on, I've seen people have gone lower and lower on him as a prospect. I'm sorry, I don't see it. He was really good at Michigan. He was the guy on that Michigan D-line with a lot of good NFL caliber prospects. He was good in the run game. He was good in the pass game. He controlled the line of scrimmage. Even if he doesn't produce at an insanely high level for the Jaguars, if you have a guy that can just help just control the line of scrimmage and get your edge rushers more time to get to the quarterback or stop the run, that's crucial because the Jaguars just don't have that.
Fair enough. On to the Raiders. Head coach Pete Carroll, is he going to make a splash this year?
So by the time this is actually released, I will have been at the Raiders Stadium, and I'm actually wondering, am I going to run into like Pete Carroll there? Am I going to see him there? It wouldn't shock me, but the Raiders. This has been something I've been saying since the Geno Smith trade. They need to draft win now players. That Geno Smith trade was a win now move. Pete Carroll is in his 70s. He is in win now mode. You look at Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly is not leaving to the pros unless the team is trying to actively win now. So I look at this and I just say Ashton Genty's the guy here. He is probably the best win now prospect in the draft. I don't think that's up for debate. And he is such a talented guy. He runs the ball with ferocity. He has great bursts. He has good cuts. Maybe if you want to poke a hole in this game, well, if he's not the best in pass pro, who cares if he's not the best in pass pro when he's getting 15 yards of play half the time?
Fair enough. On to the Jets. So the Jets are an interesting team. They have a pretty good defense, but you could add strength there. Their offensive line needs some revamping still. They brought in Justin Fields, but I don't think that would preclude them to not take a quarterback for the future. And then, they also could use a wide receiver. So what do you have them doing?
I could go a lot of areas, as you said, the Jets. And I honestly considered one prospect a bunch here, but I went a different direction. I was really heavily considered Armin Membu and even Josh Simmons at one point because their offense line is really bad. And I have seen Justin Fields. I am a Steeler fan. I saw how he reacted to pressure. I saw how he handled the pocket getting collapsed. It don't end well. But I also saw one thing Justin Fields really heavily favors. That's his tight ends. And the Jets do not have a tight end that I really trust. So I'm going to take Tyler Warren here. Now, Aaron Glenn comes from the Detroit Lions. They use Sam Laporta a bunch. He was a very dynamic weapon for them. And they don't really have that in New York. They have a good running back. They have a good wide receiver on the outside. They don't really have a guy that can really dominate the middle of the field as a pass catcher. And that's where I think Tyler Warren can come in and immediately improve them. He is a big guy, so if Fields is rushed or he needs to find someone, Tyler Warren is easier to spot. He's very athletic. He can move on the run. He can be used in different packages. I mean, we saw him take snaps as the Wildcat quarterback last year at Penn State and get yardage and touchdowns. He's a very dynamic weapon that I just see someone coming from the Lions staff who loves to do creative stuff that staff did would fall in love with.
Fair enough. So now we have the Carolina Panthers, and let's face it, this team needs a lot. They had the worst defense for points and yards allowed last year, and the league's lowest QB pressure rate. So with Abdul Carter off the board, what are you thinking?
So I did consider an edge rusher here, and if I had to guess who they would take as an edge, and this might sound crazy, and the reason why I didn't pull the trigger is because we just don't have all the information. I would have had Mike Green going here if I knew everything about him. But we just don't. I don't have all that information. I really would like that fit, though. But looking at it like this, Bryce Young, he needs more help. He needs a guy he can see. And that would be Tatoria McMillan. Ted McMillan is a big body wide receiver. He is 6'4", 6'5", has good hands, tracks the ball very well in the air. It just fits Bryce Young's play style. And here's the thing that we've talked about. It's not easy for smaller quarterbacks to read these smaller wide receiver targets. They have Xavier Legette, who is a big guy. Adam Thielen's no slouch either. And you have Ted McMillan, who you could say is still a little raw, needs to improve. Guess what? He gets to work with Adam Thielen every day to get better.
That could work. They better score a lot of points, though, because that defense is still pretty bad. On to the New Orleans Saints. And, once again, we could be looking at quarterback here with the information on Carr. So what do you have the Saints doing?
So I have a theory that they're all in on Arch. That's what I think. I look at this team, and it's not a roster I like. It's got a wide receiver I like. It's got an aging running back who's just not what he once was. The offensive line isn't all that great. The defensive line could use a lot of work. The edge rusher could use a lot of work. The linebackers, corners, safeties, whatever. So I had to look at this from a pure strategic standpoint of what I would do if I'm the Saints. And if I'm the Saints, I'm taking my best player on the board. And my best player on the board here is Malachi Starks. Malachi Starks is a game changer in the back end of a defense. Having a great safety really drastically improves your defense. And this is something the Saints have not had in a while. Yes, they have Tyrann Mathieu. He's not what he once was. He just isn't. Malachi Starks would come in and he could play the nickel, he could play the safety, he could play the box safety. He could do whatever you need him to do, but most importantly, he would just be your starting piece building that defense back up that desperately needs an overload of talent. You could say you draft a quarterback here, but you're going to put a quarterback behind a rough line with a mediocre receiving core at best, and that's if Chris Olave stays healthy, which he has showed issues at during his career so far, and not a real effective run game. I just don't like it for a quarterback.
Well, there is that. Are you concerned about whether safety is going to go in the top 10 when typically they aren't drafted until the second round?
So I've really debated on this, and I've come to the conclusion that in a draft class that doesn't have the elite talent we are used to seeing, you can't pass up on an elite talent like Malachi Starks. I will have faith in NFL teams. And Mickey Loomis has showed in the past, he really doesn't care with what teams think, oh, you shouldn't draft this position, you should draft like this. He typically just drafts the guys he likes, and I have a hard time seeing him not liking Malachi Starks.
The Chicago Bears are on the clock. They've done a lot in the offseason between trades and free agency to kind of bolster that offensive line that, let's face it, last year was not that great. They could also use some pressure up for that defensive line. Their secondary was decent, but if you can't get any pressure on the opposing quarterback, we know no secondary in the world is going to hold up that long. So where do you have them going?
I had a lot of options here. I thought of going offense. I thought of going defense. I kind of went back and forth. A couple guys I liked here before I actually say my actual pick. I really like Jahad Campbell here, but I was in the back of my head saying, does he go top 10? And I just couldn't pull the trigger because I don't know if he goes top 10. Walter Nolan, I love. Twitchy, big athletic guy, interior D line that would work with Grady Jarrett. But again, I just don't see the Bears going interior defensive line with their first pick. So that led me going down. Well, they could use an edge rusher. Mike Green, I don't know exactly his off-the-field issues of what's all resolved there. James Pierce Jr., I really like. I don't know. And I also thought of Shamar Stewart at some point because I'm like, well, a lot of teams are going to love his traits. Does he go this high? I couldn't pull the trigger on that. So I had to just go with a guy that I know Ben Johnson will work with efficiently. He'll be a big part of the offense. And that's a thing with a first-time head coach. Like, you want your first pick to kind of work. And is there a safer bet for Ben Johnson than a tight end like Colston Loveland?
No, I like the pick. I think the pick is pretty solid for that. It gives them a lot of options for their play calling.
And here's something I would add. If they are full on tight end like Colston Loveland, you could trade a Cole Kmet, get a decent draft pick, come in here and get an edge or a running back to offset that. And you could be like, well, you're getting rid of a player and you're bringing in one. I would say Colston Loveland's a better player than Cole Kmet. Personally, for me, that's how I view them.
Fair enough. Boy, top 10, 2 tight ends go. And we don't really have, I guess, Will Campbell, but other than that, we've only had one offensive lineman go. So completely different from the past couple of drafts. All right. At 11, we have the San Francisco 49ers on the clock.
So this was something that I had to think about because I could easily see the 49ers going edge here. And there's something I'm going to say with Mike Green again. If I knew, he would not be on the board, but I don't. And James Pierce Jr., I'm like, well, he's twitchy, athletic. That's something I can see the 49ers falling in love with. But I decided to go with a little safer pick with Will Johnson. Will Johnson is a very intelligent cornerback. He reads offenses extremely well. He anticipates routes. He anticipates throws. He has great jumps on the ball. And I can see a secondary player like John Lynch watching his film and just falling head over heels in love with.
I think he'd be great in that secondary. That's a good pick for them. The Cowboys at 12. Ashton Genty's off the board. Tet McMillan's off the board. We've seen those two go a lot to the Cowboys. With those two off the board, where were you leaning?
So I actually did this before I started to see the Matthew Golden hype start to creep up here, and I was like, that is a Jerry pick. But at the end of the day, I don't know how you can not look at this Cowboys line, both offense and defense, and that not be the first thing you address. So I'm going to take Walter Nolan here. Walter Nolan, I believe, is going to go higher than with what a lot of people expect because he is such a twitchy athlete on that interior defensive line. He has great traits, and he has good film, too, behind that. He clogs up rush lanes. He gets after the quarterback. He did that in 2 different systems at 2 different colleges as well. So it's not like we only see him work in one system. We saw him work in 2 different systems, and he excelled in both of them and caused mayhem and destruction.
That's fair enough. It's kind of ironic in some of the mocks that you have been seeing lately. He's actually risen up the boards a lot. Before, you would see him very rarely before the mid 20s, and I've seen him just in the past week in the teens. So you might be onto something there. The Miami Dolphins, and let's face it, they need a lot of help.
Yeah, I could have gone a lot of directions here, and this is where I had to just take command of the pick. I can't trust the Dolphins to make this pick, but it needs to be made for the health of their quarterback. I am actually going with a little bit of a shocker here. Josh Simmons is my second offensive lineman off the board. Josh Simmons is someone, if you listen to our last mock draft, I raved about him a good bit because his tape looks so much better, and without the injury, it's easier to see he would be drafted high. And with what he fits, he's a great athlete. That's what the Dolphins like. If you can get a tackle that can get outside on the edge, make big-time blocks, can be a good zone run blocking scheme for an offensive lineman, that fits Miami.
Well, now we're on to the Colts, and we've seen so many mock drafts with both Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren going here, and they're both off the board. So
the joy you have in your voice for that.
What do the Colts do?
So this was a little bit of a thought process for me because I had many different guys written down here. And I'd come back and I'd delete it and I'd redo the back half of my mock draft. And I'd come back and delete and redo it. It happened to me a bunch of times. And the Colts are just kind of this curveball that's hard to predict. But the Colts lost 2 important things in the offseason. They lost Will Fries and Ryan Kelly. That interior offense line is not good. And you look at quarterbacks like Anthony Richardson and Danny Dimes. They have escapability, but they also really don't anticipate a lot else. They don't anticipate the rush good, and that is a cause for concern, especially when you look at it. The Colts might be having a new head coach the next offseason. You cannot take that risk if you are Shane Steichen. So I'm going to take my best interior offensive lineman on the board here, which he is listed as a tackle here. I disagree. Gray Zabel. Gray Zabel is a mean, nasty guy. He will come up. He will play ferociously. He is a perfect guy for Jonathan Taylor to run behind. And you would pair him up with Quentin Nelson as your 2 interior offensive linemen at your guard position.
I like it. The Falcons are on the clock.
So this is where talent has to outright it for me. I cannot keep on passing him, especially with a team like the Atlanta Falcons. He is high on my board, and I just need to take him. Mike Green from Marshall. Mike Green has great film. He has great athletics. There is off-the-field concerns that I mentioned a couple times, but it is something to keep track of with the NFL draft because guys can fall because of it, and we don't have all the information. But you look strictly on the field, Mike Green is a top 15 player in this class, maybe a top 10 player, you could argue. He has great rush. He has great line control. He can tackle the run game, stops it very good, clogs lanes up, gets to the edge, and he is a mayhem maker. And I know you can make the argument, he was in a G5 school. How's that going to translate to the NFL? Man, you watch what he does. I don't care who he's going up against. He's going to beat some people up.
I like it. I like the fact that he didn't go to someone in the NFC West as well. So there you go for that. We are on to the Cardinals. This is the halfway point of the draft. Who do you have the Arizona Cardinals taking?
This is a little off the board here, but I still maintain I believe this guy goes higher. That would be Nick Scorton. Nick Scorton does with what Gannon's going to want from the edge position. He can get after quarterback, absolutely. But the one thing you really saw him improve at Texas A&M compared to Purdue was he was a much better run defender. He was much better holding the edge. And that's something the Cardinals desperately need because they got ran over. They got beat up by the Seattle Seahawks offense line last year in the run game. And that's unacceptable. So when we watch the Cardinals, and I just view them as someone who's going to draft a run stuffer. And I would take Nick Scorton here because I think he has some pass rush ability as well, because the team also needs a pass rusher at the end of the day still.
Fair enough. Fair enough. The Bengals. I know that you want to see them succeed. I also know that you want to make sure that that offense is even better than what it was last year, right?
So with the Bengals, I had to make my call, and this is probably one of the two guys that I have that will not be going round one. But I just want to stake my claim in saying they're my guys, and that would be T.J. Sanders out of South Carolina. T.J. Sanders is a great interior pass rusher. He beat guys with his hands, his movement ability. It's all very good there. He also helped clog up rush lanes for South Carolina. Now, I know you can say South Carolina has a lot of really good defensive linemen. T.J. Sanders, to me, was phenomenal outside of the other guys. He held up on the line of scrimmage. He won battles more than he lost. And he had a lot of one-on-one matchups that he just dominated, quite frankly.
Well, that's good. I mean, they do need some outside edge help, but at least on the defensive line, you're giving them somebody. So that's definitely a plus. But to be quite honest, their entire defense needs to be revamped, right?
Oh, I could have thrown a dart at any position and been fine there.
The Seattle Seahawks are on the clock.
Now, next year they'll be picking much higher at the first overall pick. We know who they'll be taking then. But for right now, they're going to take Kenneth Grant. Okay, I kid. This Seahawks team's not bad, but I'm still not entirely sure of what they're doing. They brought in Sam Darnold, but it's a 1-year deal, pretty much. They can get out of that with no problem. I would really like to address the interior offensive line. Membu is someone I would move into guard, but I just didn't outweigh Kenneth Grant to me. And I would keep on building that D-line, because that's what Seattle is. Seattle is a defensive culture team. They hired a defensive-minded head coach. They need that defense to be up and running. Their secondary has a lot of good pieces. Their linebackers are greatly improving. Their edges are still a little young, haven't really shown out yet, but you just keep building that interior line.
Okay. Well, anyway, let's go on to the Buccaneers at 19.
So, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this was something I really had to think about. And I've said that for a bunch, but because I can see this being Jahad Campbell. I 100% can. But my brain kind of took over and said, do fun pick. So I did fun pick. I take Luther Burden III here. Now, you look at the Bucs. Mike Evans is not the youngest person on the roster. He is getting up there in age. Chris Godwin has struggled with injuries. They have McMillan, who I really liked last year, but I'm concerned with how much longer the two lead Bucs wide receivers are going to be able to go. I get Luther Burden here, someone who I think would be perfect with Baker Mayfield, and how he can run all over the field, is great with routes, plays a slot. I think Burden's just a home run pick here for the Bucs that they could not pass up on.
Did you give any thought to either Jihad Campbell or Walker?
I did, and by the way, Byron Murphy, I had to look that up. I did think Jihad Campbell here. He's the second place guy I would have here. If they went Jihad Campbell, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't necessarily think they're going to go edge with their first pick. I've kind of cooled off on that because I view them as someone who's going to try and take a more traitsy guy in round 2.
Okay, well there you have it. Now the Broncos probably are not happy because all the offensive weapons that everybody said that they needed are off the board. What do you have them doing?
So I think there's two guys they could go here. I think Emeka Ibuka is very possible here. He fits Sean Payton a lot. A receiver that's a route runner, would play mainly in the slot. Good for Bo Nix, short intermediate throwing game. But there's just one other thing I thought with the Broncos, and that's I don't really like their offense line still. I know Bo Nix has a quick release, but their run game wasn't all that effective last year. And I think a lot of that comes from the offensive line. So when I looked at that on paper, I really like the idea of them taking Armin Membu here. Membu is a guy who could play tackle or guard. He could slot in either or. He's a good run blocker, and he has shown some good ability in the pass game. Even though I think he is a little raw as a pass blocker, Sean Payton working with him every day, I think we'd see great improvement. And plus, he would be with a quarterback that gets rid of the ball quickly, so it wouldn't be that big of an issue to start out.
Did you think about running back here at all?
Running back, it's possible, but Sean Payton's only taken one running back in the first round his entire coaching career, and that was Mark Ingram. And that was already on a super built Saints team. I just don't see it. I don't.
On to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, I think the Steelers draft Shedeur Sanders. I'll just get out of the way here. I've been saying it for a while now. Shedeur Sanders, to me, makes a lot of sense when you look at their situation. They, for one, have Mason Rudolph as their starting quarterback. 2, would get to avoid the Aaron Rodgers fiasco. And 3, man, that 26 quarterback class doesn't look as good as it looks on paper. And when I say this, I went to looking at it, how would I grade these guys compared to Shedeur? Because you have to live in the moment still. And I was Arch Manning. We don't know if he's going to come out, but yeah. Nico, I know he just transferred from Tennessee. I still really like him. I don't think he was in a good offense that translates to the pros. Excited to see where he goes. I like that. And then we got to the guys. I was like, man. Drew Aller, wouldn't have him ranked above Shedeur. Garrett Nussmeier, wouldn't have him ranked above Shedeur. Lenore Sellers, that's someone you could talk me into, but there's still a lot to be worked on there. I don't think he should come out next year. So I looked at all of that. Those were the top 5 quarterback prospects next year. I only have 2 of them better than Shedeur, and with how Mike Tomlin squeezes blood from a stone, they will not be picking them. So I had to go Shedeur Sanders here.
Well thought out. The Chargers are on the clock.
The Los Angeles Chargers here need pass rush help. I don't think that can be disputed. They cut Joey Bosa, and Khalil Mack is getting up there in age. I really like James Pierce Jr. here, man. He is a very talented edge rusher who has high traits. And you maybe need a coach to get on him. Well, who's a coach that rides everyone? Harbaugh. He just does. He expects out of the players, and I can see that really working for James Pierce Jr., getting him to the most talented he can be, because there's a lot to love there. And maybe if you can just ride him harder, this is something we've said with coaches, they get the best out of players. Harbaugh is one of those guys.
Fair enough. Are you concerned with his character issues at all?
It's something that you can be concerned about, but I don't have all the information. I haven't seen anything like really publicized about it. So without the information, I kind of just have to look at the player on the film.
Excuse me, sorry about that. So the Packers, are they going to finally pull the trigger and draft a wide receiver in the first round?
So here is one of the guys that I needed to go round 1 for it to be a Jordan Parish mock draft. This is a guy I've been very high on the entire draft process, as you would back up. And the Packers have a need at the wide receiver position. I'm going to take Trey Harris here out of Ole Miss. Now, I know Trey Harris maybe isn't the guy Packers fans would want, but let me explain. First of all, they have a guy like Emeka Ibuka on the roster already with Jaden Reed. I don't really think I'd draft Emeka Ibuka when I have a guy that does what he does already. I need a guy that can take the top off and just be an overall X on the outside. That's Trey Harris to me. And Trey Harris has showcased that ability at Ole Miss. He got hurt his final year, which I think really hampered his draft stock a good bit, especially dealing with that nagging groin injury. He came back against Florida. He re-injured it in that game. Just not something you want to see. And, hey, are the Packers going to draft a wide receiver? Who knows? But I look at Trey Harris. I look at their needs. He just makes sense for the Packers.
And in the same division, we have the Minnesota Vikings picking number 24.
Here's another guy that I just had to have on here because I fell in love with him the more and more I watched him. That'd be Tate Radlich. The Vikings have greatly improved their interior offensive line, bringing in Will Fries, signing Ryan Kelly, but I still think it could be better. And I just can't help but feel like there's something missing there. They have every piece, but when they went against the Rams, they got their asses kicked. And that's a cause for concern. Meanwhile, when I watched Georgia last year, the games with Tate Radlich versus without Tate Radlich, that Georgia offense was different. With Tate Radlich, they would beat up on anyone. Without, they sucked. Their run game was inefficient. Their passing game was far worse. They had interior pressure. Tate Radlich really set the tone at Georgia. And if you can set the tone at Georgia, you can set the tone for an NFL team.
Fair enough. Were you concerned at all with like looking maybe instead for one of the offensive linemen that could technically go this high that might play center? Ryan Kelly has had a lot of injuries, and let's face it, he's not as young as he used to be.
No, he's not. And as you say that, I would just like to look at the centers here. Jared Wilson from Georgia. Again, Tate Radlich wasn't playing. He did not look like the same player. And I could go down Seth McLaughlin. I don't really have him close to that grade range yet. And there's not really a tackle I would say, yeah, let's move into center, because tackle to center is completely different. There's so many different things they have to do. It's not something I would project.
All righty. We have the Houston Texans picking at 25.
I have to have hope that they drafted offensive lineman here. For the safety of CJ Stroud, I have to have the hope. So I'm going offensive tackle, and I'm not going Kelvin Banks Jr., I'm going Josh Connerly. Now, Kelvin Banks Jr., I am lower on than a lot of people. Not saying he's a bad player. I view him as more of an interior guard than anything else. And I have other guards rated higher than him. Meanwhile, I look at Josh Connerly Jr., I really like him as a tackle at the next level. He's a good athlete, can get out in space, has good pass pro work, is kind of in a a Kyle Shanahan-based offense at Oregon. Oregon runs a lot of similar stuff to that. And you watch that and you look at where D'Amico Ryans' coach staff comes from, not hard to connect the dots.
All righty. The Rams.
The Los Angeles Rams. And this is something I had to really think about, because this guy is falling, and maybe it's because I view him as a linebacker, and that's how it is. I am taking Jalen Walker here because he just has that thing as a linebacker to me. He can come downhill. He can play with some ferocity. You know who he really reminded me of when I watched him? Ernest Jones. Who did the Rams miss last year?
Yeah, I don't really think that I see the correlation there, but I mean, fair enough. They did miss Ernest Jones, so you're absolutely right there. Now, so out of curiosity, because you went through your cataloging of next year's quarterbacks, and you didn't see or you had mentioned how they reacted or related with one another and with Shador. Where do you see them with Jackson Dart or Shuck or any of those players? Because let's face it, Stafford only has a year or two left. Would you think about pulling the trigger on a quarterback here so that they have that fifth-year option? They can work with him over the next couple of years while Stafford is in the building to get him prepped for where you need to go.
So I understand that thought process, but here's the thing. If I'm the Rams, next year or the year after that, whenever Matt Stafford's gone, that's not now. I have Matt Stafford. I am going to try and win it. It's not like there's a quarterback I can't pass up. To me, I don't have a ridiculously high grade on Jackson Dart. I actually don't have a top 2-round grade on him. I have a higher grade on Dylan Gabriel, and I don't think Dylan Gabriel goes this high. So when I look at that, I just don't view the Rams as taking that quarterback risk. Next year, maybe you can make the case that, oh, hey, the Rams, they're an aggressive team. They would mortgage the future to make a massive trade-up to get one of those guys. Nico Monmiello would be pretty fun with Sean McVay, to be honest.
All right. I was just kind of curious what your thoughts were on that. The Baltimore Ravens picking 27.
So when you pick for a team in the AFC North, you have to find that mentality, that physical, nasty mentality of hard knocks football. And this is a guy that just fits the Ravens. He fits that mentality and something they need. Tyler Booker. The Ravens need to work on their offensive line still. I'm not a big fan of it. Ronnie Stanley they just paid, but it's still a lot of pieces that I just watched and I'm like, Just compare the Bills game against the Ravens to the Bills game against the Chiefs. The Chiefs did not have that good of an O-line. I don't think that's disputable. You know who the Bills got a lot of pressure on and were able to clog up a lot of the lanes? The Ravens. And we compare that to if they had to play the Eagles at the end, and we saw what happened when they played the Eagles in the regular season. They got bullied. Tyler Booker's not someone who's going to get bullied. He is a big, strong MFer that's going to help establish the Ravens' run game.
I do find it kind of odd that he has fallen as far as he had, considering people early on were talking about him being a top half of the draft pick. So it's nice to see that he's actually been picked in the first round. I've seen some of them where he's been in the second round. So
my thing with Tyler Booker is I'm very much concerned of how he handles speed from the interior D-line position, how he can block that. But I look at the Ravens, they're a good team. They know how to develop offensive linemen. And he is a power-based guy, which is what the Ravens typically do for their offense in general.
well, as long as he doesn't have to move laterally too much, I think he's probably going to be okay. He gets his hands on you, you're done. So
Yeah, and he's paving a way for Derrick Henry. Perfect.
yeah, there you go. The Detroit Lions. You got to wonder what Detroit's going to do. Disappointing way to end their season after a 15-2 record last year. Obviously, we know that they can be looking at edge, offensive line, potentially a wide receiver. Where do you have them going?
I have him going edge here, and if I didn't send you my mock draft beforehand, I'd actually ask you to guess, because I legitimately think this guy will sneak into the back half of the first round. That would be Braden Swinson. Braden Swinson is a power rusher. He is Jared Verse light when you watch his film. Physical guy at the point of attack, is good against the run, can really push an offense tackle backwards. That's what the Lions really like in their players. That's what they really kind of need on that edge room outside of Aiden Hutchinson, who was mainly in line. Braden Swinson can play on the outside. You can put him next to Hutch, do whatever you want. That is some power that offensive lines would struggle with to deal with. And he does have some good lateral movement, athleticism that he can stop run plays if they bounce out to the outside.
Okay. The team that actually beat the Detroit Lions and sent them packing in the playoffs is up next, the Commanders.
Jahad Campbell. And
I like that pick.
I picked Jahad Campbell here because of pairing him up with Bobby Wagner. Is there a better linebacker to be paired up with to learn the ropes of the NFL than Bobby Wagner?
No, especially not for that defense.
Yeah. He just fits Dan Quinn's defense, and I just love the pick.
I don't think much more needs to be said there. I think that would be a really fun tandem to watch. The Buffalo Bills.
So this is a guy I had falling because I don't really know where he's going to go. I honestly don't think he'll be on the board here, but I kept on picking. I was like, okay, I don't know who's going to necessarily take him, but I know I have to have him go round one. Jedi Barrett. And Bills fans, if you got Jedi Barrett, you need to be doing backflips because he's what the Bills need. He can play outside safety nickel. He is physical. He has great ball in the air skills. It's so hard to pinpoint what team's going to draft him, but I know he's going to go in the first round.
I fully believe that he'll go a lot earlier than this, but that's okay. I am shocked to hear about your pick for the Chiefs.
This was just kind of fun because I'm picturing the draft war room. And you're looking at all the guys on the board, and you can be like offensive line, yada yada. And I just see Spags in the corner, pounding his fist on the table. Give me the insane athletic dude. Give me Nick Emanwari. And I just see Spags winning that because I don't see anyone be able to hold Spags back from turning in the pick. It's just. Can you tell me that would not be fun with him on Spags defense?
Oh, I definitely think that it could be fun. My question would be, um, what are you going to do in your offensive line?
Now, I would probably come back round 2 draft guard. They paid Jalen Moore a good bit of money. It's what I expect to be their offense tackle week 1. Can't say I agree with that, but it's what the Chiefs are going to do. So I look at that, and I look at their interior offense line. That's the main point I'd really want to attack. So Kelvin Banks Jr. here is a possibility, and it wouldn't shock me. But I also look at the Chiefs, and they oftentimes will just draft best guy on the board, guy they like. They'll rework their offensive line, but they also know Andy Reid's a really darn good offensive line coach. He knows what he likes. He knows how to coach them up properly. And getting a guy a little later when you could get a guy like Nick Amendola right now is worth it.
And rounding things off, your Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, so I'm going here with a little bit off the board pick because I don't know if he goes round 1, but I just want to have an excuse to talk about him. Omar Norman Lott is the pick here. And if you're asking, why are you drafting him this high over other guys? Have you seen his pass rush win rate? 12% for the interior D-line position. Now, he can't stop a run. He is way too undersized for that. But you know what? That don't matter with the Eagles' defensive line because he doesn't need to be in there for run downs. He can be in there 3rd and long, 3rd down, late game pass situation. Go eat, Omar. Go eat. And he will. He will cause mayhem for quarterbacks in the interior pressure. They just lost Milton Williams. They need some more guys in the interior line to rush the quarterback because that's what they built their team off of that just won the Super Bowl. And it's what they need to keep building their team off of.
Fair enough. And that you have the first round of Jordan Parish's NFL draft. Whether you agree or disagree, and I'm not going to lie, there's some there that I'm a little shocked about as well. But definitely reach out, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear from you. All of Jordan's reasoning was pretty sound. Sometimes it's just a matter of if you perceive a player higher or lower. And we have heard a lot of talk about this draft that, after 10 to 15, a lot of the players are equal grades. So then it's just a matter of pick your flavor, choose your own adventure, whatever phrase you prefer.
And hey, thank you very much for watching. This might be my last draft video of this cycle. I've had a great time making a bunch of content. Since January 21st, there has been a draft video upload on the channel on a weekday, and that was a lofty goal I set out for myself. And I'm very proud to be at the end of the road and have achieved it. So thank you very much for following along for this draft season. If you liked it, hit that like button. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. If you think I'm an idiot, go down that comment section and display it. And if you want more content, there's a playlist on the screen. Most recent upload on the screen. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you for an amazing draft season. And enjoy the NFL draft, everyone.